She drained every last cent, then left a note saying not to look for her. That same day, the bank told me our savings, 312,000, was gone. But what gutted me wasn't the money. It was whose name she'd moved it under: Carol Halstead and Trevor Cross. I didn't know the name, but I knew what it meant. She didn't just leave me. She'd been planning this betrayal for months. She thought she'd taken everything, but she forgot about the offshore account, twice the money, and only my name on it. She played dirty. Now, I play quiet, but smart, and I never miss. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is Michael Halstead, and I'm 56 years old. I spend my days running a small contracting business from our paid-off home in rural Michigan, where I've lived with my wife Carol for nearly 3 decades. The morning light streams through our kitchen window as Carol, my wife of 27 years, sits at the table, her face illuminated by her phone screen rather than her usual financial paperwork. Something in her expression makes my throat tighten. It's the same look she had when bank statements started disappearing from our mail. I have my own secret, though. A forgotten offshore account from an old commercial job, its details tucked away in a dusty binder upstairs. My shoulders relax, knowing it's there, even as Carol's fingers tap rapidly on her phone screen, her wedding ring catching the light. But let me start from the beginning. I woke up to silence, not the comfortable kind that wraps around you like a warm blanket on a Sunday morning. This was different. Wrong. The bed beside me was cold and empty. Sheets pulled tight in a way Carol never left them. Maybe she'd gone to her sister's again, or hit the stores early. But my gut knew better. You ever get that feeling where your body figures something out before your brain catches up? That's what had me moving through our house like a ghost, checking rooms I already knew would be empty. The kitchen stood pristine, untouched since dinner. Living room, same story. Then I hit our walk-in closet, and my knees nearly gave out. Her side was half empty. Not messy empty like when she packed for trips, but methodically cleared out. Designer shoes that used to line the shelf? Gone. That row of color-coded blouses she'd spent years collecting? Vanished. Even her jewelry box was missing. Though, honestly, that didn't surprise me. Carol treated those pieces like old friends. I remembered the Christmas I'd given her that pearl necklace. How her eyes had lit up. How she'd worn it every special occasion for years. Now it was probably bouncing around in her SUV somewhere, along with half our life together. Speaking of which, the garage confirmed it. Her spot sat empty, just oil stains on concrete where her Lexus should have been. That's when I noticed the envelope on the kitchen island, propped against the fruit bowl like some kind of sick joke. My name was written on it in Carol's perfect handwriting, the same hand that had signed our wedding certificate 27 years ago. The paper felt expensive between my fingers as I unfolded it. Carol always did like the finer things. Mike, you always cared more about work than me. I found someone who doesn't ignore me, who actually sees me. Don't try to find me. I'm not coming back. Cold, clinical, like she was canceling a dental appointment instead of torching nearly 3 decades of marriage. My chest felt like someone had wrapped steel bands around it and started squeezing. But something else nagged at me. Something about the way she'd handled our finances these past few months. I practically ran to my desktop computer, fingers trembling as I logged into our online banking. First try, denied. Second try, denied. Third time, I finally got the password right, but what I saw made me wish I hadn't. 0, 0, 0. Every account. Checking, savings, retirement. All of it cleaned out. $312,000 gone. The room started spinning. I grabbed the desk to steady myself, then reached for the phone. "This is Mike Halstead," I told the bank representative, my voice sounding strange in my ears. "I need to report some unauthorized transactions." "Let me pull up your accounts, Mr. Halstead." Keys clicked in the background. "I see several large transfers were processed yesterday afternoon. They appear to have been authorized through proper channels." Authorized? By who? The transfers were initiated by Carol Halstead, who is listed as a joint account holder. The funds were moved to a new account under the names Carol Halstead and Trevor Cross. Trevor Cross. The name hit me like a physical blow. I didn't know who he was, but I already hated him with every fiber of my being. Sir? The representative's voice seemed to come from very far away. Since Mrs. Halstead had full access to these joint accounts, I'm afraid there's nothing we can. I hung up. Couldn't listen anymore. Just sat there in my home office, staring at zeros where our life savings used to be, trying to wrap my head around how thoroughly I'd been gutted. 27 years of marriage, 3 decades of hard work, all our plans for the future, gone in a single afternoon. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not from fear, though, from rage. Pure, white-hot rage that made my vision blur around the edges. Carol hadn't just left me. She'd calculated this, planned it down to the last detail. While I was out building other people's dreams, she'd been systematically destroying ours. The next few hours passed in a blur of phone calls, each one hammering another nail into my financial coffin. I started with the credit union where we kept our business account. Same story, drained. The investment firm managing our retirement portfolio? Also cleaned out. Carol had been thorough, I'll give her that. You know that feeling when you're on a job site and suddenly realize you've cut a beam wrong, and now the whole structure's compromised? That sick drop in your stomach? This was worse. Way worse. By late afternoon, I was sitting in Jerry Thompson's law office downtown. Jerry and I went way back. I'd done the addition on his house 15 years ago, back when his kids were little. Now he was looking at me with a kind of pity usually reserved for terminal diagnoses. "Mike," he said, shuffling through the printouts I'd brought, "I hate to tell you this, but legally speaking, Carol didn't do anything wrong." I leaned forward in my chair. "She took everything, Jerry. 300 grand. That can't be legal. Joint accounts mean joint ownership. Either party has full rights to withdraw funds at any time." He took off his reading glasses, rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Unless you can prove she was acting under duress, or there was some kind of criminal conspiracy." "She was conspiring with this Trevor guy," I said, my voice rising. "That's gotta count for something." Jerry shook his head. "Meeting someone else and deciding to leave, even if it involves taking jointly held assets, isn't criminal conspiracy. It's just..." He paused, searching for the right words. "It's just a really crappy thing to do." The late afternoon sun slanted through his office windows, catching the dust motes in the air. For a second, it reminded me of mornings in the workshop, checking lumber for projects. Simple times. Gone times. "What about the business accounts?" I asked. "She wasn't supposed to touch those. Were they in both your names?" I nodded slowly, remembering how Carol had insisted on being added to everything years ago. "For tax purposes," she'd said, "for security." "Then same rules apply." Jerry leaned back in his chair. "Look, Mike, I can file paperwork if you want to pursue this. But honestly, you'd be throwing good money after bad." I drove home in a daze, barely registering the familiar streets. The house looked different now, emptier, though nothing had changed since morning. Funny how knowing someone's gone can alter the whole feel of a place. In my office, I pulled up our household budget spreadsheet, Carol's pride and joy. She'd tracked every penny for decades, color-coding expenses, projecting savings. I scrolled through the neat columns, looking for... there. Our total savings. 312,000. All of it meticulously documented, right down to the last dollar. Now, just electronic ghosts in an Excel file. The phone rang, startling me. County Treasurer's office. The woman's voice was professionally sympathetic as she explained that our property taxes were 3 months overdue. First, I'd heard of it. "But we always pay on time," I said. "My wife handles." I stopped, the reality hitting me fresh. "How much do we owe?" The number made my stomach clench. If I didn't come up with it in 30 days, they'd start the lien process. The house, the only thing I had left, could be at risk. I hung up and sat in the growing darkness, listening to the hollow tick of the grandfather clock Carol had insisted we buy at that antique shop in Traverse City. Each tick felt like another second counting down to... what? Bankruptcy? Foreclosure? My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but you never really saw me. Never noticed how unhappy I was. Trevor does. I stared at Carol's words until they blurred. 27 years? And this was what it came down to? A text message and an empty bank account? The rage came back, but different this time. Colder, more focused. Carol thought she knew everything about our finances. Thought she'd stripped me down to nothing. But she didn't know about the binder. I spent the next day wrestling with despair and anger, but I couldn't let that drag me down. Carol had taken my trust and turned it into ash, but I wasn't going to sit around and let her torch my life entirely. With a deep breath, I decided it was time to search for the deed to the house and any other documents that could help me salvage what was left. I made my way to the workshop in the back of the garage. The one place where I felt a little like myself still remained. Dust hung in the air like a shroud, and every corner was packed with old blueprints, toolboxes, and junk I'd put aside over the years. But among that chaos, I needed to find clarity. Opening an old filing cabinet felt like cracking open a vault from a different lifetime. The drawers creaked in protest as I rifled through yellowing papers. Old contracts, invoices from projects long completed, even an ancient receipt from our honeymoon getaway to Hawaii. Each page turned felt like peeling back layers of memories that had become bittersweet. But there was no time for nostalgia. After half an hour of searching through irrelevant papers, most of which were too faded to read, I finally found what I was looking for. A small folder tucked away behind some blueprints for a custom home I'd built years ago. I pulled it out and saw the words "Deed" printed on top in bold letters. A wave of relief washed over me until it dawned on me that Carol might have already figured out how to manipulate these documents too. Just another thing she could take from me if she wanted. But this deed was crucial. If she thought she had stripped everything from me, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. While flipping through pages, something caught my eye at the back of the cabinet. A small lockbox with no label. It sat partially hidden beneath layers of old architectural drawings like it knew it didn't belong there. Curiosity piqued, I pulled it out, wiped off some dust, and jimmied open the latch. Inside lay an assortment of forgotten odds and ends, rusty screws, broken measuring tapes, even an old compass from my army days. But buried beneath all that clutter was a dusty binder. My heart raced as I pulled it out. Its cover looked worn but familiar somehow. With trembling hands, I opened it up and saw right there at the front, "Offshore account." Memories flooded back. The decision to set up that account 2 decades ago, after finishing a major commercial job. It had been a safety net, a place where I could tuck away money in case things ever went south. Quickly, logging into my laptop felt like performing surgery, sweaty palms and all. But when the balance popped up on the screen, pure adrenaline surged through me. 642.0 untouched. It took everything in me not to leap out of my chair with joy or disbelief. Relief flooded over me so fast it almost knocked me off my feet, but then came something sharper, resolve. This money wasn't for comfort or rebuilding some sort of normalcy. It was ammunition in this battle. Carol had started without even realizing it. If she thought she could destroy our life together without repercussions, well, she'd be in for quite a surprise. As reality settled in again, I closed my laptop slowly. This wasn't going to be some impulsive revenge fueled by rage. No way would I allow her that satisfaction. No flashy moves or reckless spending on things that would put me back in her debt emotionally or financially. I had bigger plans now. I would strike back intelligently and methodically. Make sure every step left her scrambling while protecting myself legally every step of the way. She wouldn't see this coming, not if I played my cards right. A smirk crept onto my face as I started plotting how this whole thing would unfold. First order of business? Researching Carol's financial habits since her disappearance. And Trevor's too, because he was part of this mess now as well. The thought made me chuckle. They thought they were building something new together while I'd just uncovered their ticking time bomb hidden within all those lavish dreams they'd concocted together on social media. I jumped up from my chair and paced around the workshop like a lion circling its prey, my heart pounding with renewed vigor. Time to get smart about this, I muttered under my breath, as determination hardened into steel inside me. Every phone call made over these past few days now seemed less about despair than laying groundwork for what would come next. A careful strategy meticulously crafted without raising suspicion or triggering any alarms along the way. What kind of scheme could topple their grand plan? Wouldn't they love to know how easily their little bubble could burst? First things first, I'd reach out to Pete, my old Army buddy who ran that private investigation firm in Detroit, and see what dirt he could dig up on Trevor Cross beyond his charming social media facade. As if summoned by fate itself, just then my phone buzzed again. It was Pete's number flashing across the screen. Perfect timing or pure luck? Either way didn't matter. Opportunities don't knock twice when you're busy moping around feeling sorry for yourself. "Hey, Mike, what's shaking?" Pete's voice sounded chipper through the line, despite everything else crumbling around me. "Pete," I said, grinning now because he wouldn't recognize just how much had changed since we last spoke. "I've got work for you." This was going to be fun after all. A meticulous dance leading toward justice served cold rather than sweet revenge. After hanging up with Pete, I felt a rush of excitement mixed with anxiety. It had been too long since I'd taken charge of my life like this. But it was a calculated risk. I needed to stay sharp and on the move just like I had back in the Army. So, I started jotting down everything I wanted Pete to dig into, specifically Trevor Cross. Now, calling him a personal trainer was generous. The guy was more like a wannabe influencer. Still, that meant he was probably posting all kinds of content online that could help me figure out how he operated. Social media accounts, business dealings, anything that might reveal his true colors. The following day felt like it dragged on forever. Each tick of the clock echoed in my workshop as I worked through projects. Nothing could drown out the anticipation bubbling inside me. A part of me wanted to rush over to Pete's office in Detroit right then and there, but patience had always been my strong suit. Besides, this wasn't just any plan, it was going to take time and precision. A week later, the phone rang again. My heart jumped as I saw Pete's name flash across the screen. "Mike, got your report right here," he said, sounding a bit more serious than usual. "Let's hear it," I replied, my voice steady despite the butterflies flapping around in my stomach. "Okay, so, first off, Trevor Cross isn't just your average personal trainer," Pete started. "This guy has got a trail of bad business deals behind him longer than you can imagine. Bankruptcies filed in 3 states over the last 5 years. Real estate ventures that went belly up quicker than you can say flipped. He's currently under IRS investigation for tax fraud. Seriously shady stuff." My chest tightened as Pete continued outlining Trevor's dubious history. He partnered up with some folks who've got reputations for cutting corners, or worse. Things that should raise all sorts of red flags if you ask me. "So he's not just a pretty face with dumbbells?" I chuckled darkly. "Nope, and get this. Carol and Trevor are planning to flip a mansion together using what was once your life savings." A wave of disbelief washed over me as those words sank in deep. The thought alone made my blood boil. But more importantly, it confirmed what I'd suspected all along. They were living large on my dime while I'd been left reeling from their betrayal. What mansion? My mind raced as I tried to piece everything together. Just off Lake Michigan. A real piece of work they're trying to turn into something glamorous. It's been sitting vacant for a while now, a classic fixer-upper with tons of potential. He paused for a beat before adding casually, "They've even got plans for an extravagant launch party once they flip it." I couldn't help but snort at that. A party? More like their grand delusion. Everything built on the back of someone else's hard-earned money. I asked Pete about specific timelines and details surrounding the auction house, their golden opportunity, and what exactly it would take to secure ownership once and for all. "That's where things get interesting," he said. "The property is set to go up for auction in 90 days. My mind whirred as soon as he mentioned that date. I felt something akin to giddiness bubble up within me at the thought of an endgame approaching so quickly. 90 days. The perfect timeline to orchestrate something truly spectacular without rushing things. I pulled out my calendar and circled that date. Property auction. Bold red ink, bleeding through the page. So, what do we do next? I asked, feeling sharper than ever about moving forward strategically without drawing attention from either Carol or Trevor. We prepare, Pete replied matter-of-factly. I'll keep digging into their social media profiles, see if there are any financial leads we can exploit along the way. As we continued talking through possible angles and tactics, every word exchanged lit up ideas inside me like fireworks on Independence Day. Each moment felt electrifying, as fresh possibilities unfolded before us. When we finally hung up after solidifying our plan going forward, a series of follow-ups and further investigations, I took a moment to breathe deeply and reflect on how far I'd come from that dark day when Carol vanished. Without warning, with renewed purpose now coursing through me, I could almost taste victory. But first things first. Gathering intel would be critical if I were going to have any hope at winning this battle against them both without exposing myself too soon. In between construction projects over the next few weeks, every spare moment was consumed by planning and research, the kind of meticulous detail work only veterans appreciate. And every click on my computer felt less like aimless browsing and more like plotting revenge against someone who'd thought they could erase my life overnight without consequence. I learned how Trevor presented himself online. His posts filled with glossed-over selfies, showcasing supposed luxury lifestyles, coupled with motivational captions designed to inspire or perhaps mislead. They didn't seem quite aligned with his reality according to those court documents Pete dug up regarding bankruptcies. This man had spun quite an elaborate web around himself while dangling Carol right along with him into whatever trap they'd concocted together. In no time at all, various pieces started falling into place. The auction date loomed closer every day as both tension and excitement grew thick around me like smoke billowing from one burning flame after another throughout these weeks leading toward Showdown Day. As images swirled in my mind of what awaited them, when that countdown finally ticked down, I chuckled softly under my breath, while envisioning just how far-reaching their consequences would be. Setting up the trust was a meticulous task, but I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I didn't want a single thread connecting me to the operation. With the offshore funds sitting there, untouched and ripe for the picking, I was ready to dive in head first. I reached out to a third-party legal team based in a different state, one with no ties to my past or present life in Michigan. They were discreet, professional, and knew exactly how to navigate the murky waters of anonymity. We set up an initial meeting over video call. Their faces were obscured by shadows as they assured me that confidentiality was their utmost priority. "All right, Mr. Halstead," one of them said, tapping his pen against his notepad like it was an extension of his very being. "We'll help you create a trust under a corporate name that won't raise any eyebrows." I leaned back in my chair and nodded. "Let's go with something generic, something that sounds innocuous." "Got it," he replied, scribbling furiously. "How about Riverview Holdings? It implies potential without drawing attention." "Perfect," I said, feeling satisfaction trickle down my spine. Riverview Holdings would be the shield I needed while I moved forward with my plan. Over the next few weeks, we hammered out the details, establishing a separate bank account under this new name where I could funnel money from the offshore account into bidding at the auction without so much as a whisper tracing back to me. The whole process felt surreal. Every time I logged in to review documents or authorize transfers, it was like staring into the eyes of my past, a man who'd trusted too easily and had everything stripped away. Meanwhile, Carol and Trevor were busy living large on social media. They were posting about their upcoming luxury venture with such flair it made me sick. Pictures of them clinking glasses filled with expensive wine under sparkling chandeliers seemed to punctuate every update. Each post seemed like another jab aimed right at my gut. They flaunted plans for private viewings at the mansion, while promising fans they'd soon have their own reality show chronicling their lavish lifestyle. A promise both ridiculous and maddening when you considered where those funds had come from. I scrolled through their posts one evening after dinner while sitting alone in my workshop, the scent of sawdust still lingering around me, as memories resurfaced of Carol and me working together on projects long ago. "You always cared more about work than me," her note had said. It echoed in my mind like an annoying refrain as I studied every carefully curated shot they uploaded. Carol beaming next to Trevor in front of a sprawling estate that looked far too extravagant for either of them. My jaw tightened as frustration brewed within me. Every picture fueled my determination even more. To see them fail publicly was going to be my ultimate revenge. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about dignity and self-respect. One evening, Pete called me up after doing some digging into Trevor's finances once again, a follow-up check-in on what we both already suspected but needed confirmation on. "Hey, Mike," he started off casually before getting straight to business. "Looks like your lovely wife and her boy toy are living off borrowed time here." I perked up immediately at those words. "What do you mean?" "They're stretching their finances thin," Pete continued, his tone more serious now. "From what I've pieced together, they only have enough liquid assets to cover minimum bids at that auction. They're counting on winning big here without any safety net if things go south." A grin crept onto my face as relief washed over me like cool water on a hot summer day. It meant they were more vulnerable than ever, right when they thought they were invincible. "So they'll be risking everything?" I asked, feeling emboldened by this newfound intel. "Exactly," Pete confirmed confidently. "If things go sideways at that auction, if someone outbids them, it could spell disaster for both of them." I could hardly contain myself at that thought. The image of Carol's face when she realized her grand plans were unraveling before her very eyes felt intoxicatingly sweet. "This is good news," I told him, letting out a breath I'd been holding tightly all week long. "You've got some cards stacked in your favor now," he replied thoughtfully before continuing cautiously. "But remember, don't let emotions cloud your judgment." "No chance," I reassured him with certainty ringing through my voice. The groundwork was laid out before me. Riverview Holdings was ready to enter the scene under cover of darkness, while all eyes remained glued on Carol and Trevor's ill-fated journey toward luxury bliss at auction day. As days turned into weeks, leading up toward that pivotal date, marked red on my calendar, I dove headfirst into research about auction processes, alongside studying properties in general. The finer points kept coming back into focus. Each time another post from them showed up online, every self-congratulatory caption made its mark deep inside me while fortifying resolve anew for what lay ahead. The house itself? A beautiful lakefront mansion, just a few counties away from where I'd built our life together. A place filled with endless potential, yet now tangled up in betrayal, woven between those walls where they'd concocted dreams high above anything remotely resembling reality grounded beneath them. Every evening spent plotting slowly turned into an exhilarating thrill ride each time images flashed across screens, showcasing fancy trappings awaiting discovery there. Every word spoken during meetings reinforced purpose within. That ultimate moment wouldn't just mark an end, but herald something far greater instead. Vindication for everything stolen from me, while also giving rise anew from ashes left behind. In short, the stage was set. Not merely for revenge, but redemption. Long overdue, waiting just beyond horizon lines, lurking closer than ever before. I drove to the mansion 2 days before the auction, my heart thumping in my chest as I approached. The place loomed ahead, a lavish display of stone and glass nestled by the lake. Richard Dane, I thought, reminding myself of my alias, the trusted representative of Riverview Holdings, here to scout out this beautiful house that Carol had tried to make her own. As I stepped through the front doors, the scent of fresh paint and varnish greeted me. The grand foyer was airy and bright, with chandeliers sparkling above. I took a moment to soak it all in, imagining Carol traipsing through these halls, envisioning how she'd decorate each room to match her whims. It made me smile inwardly, a sense of satisfaction blooming as I pictured her delight in those faux marble countertops or extravagant wallpaper. With every step deeper into the mansion, I could almost hear her excited voice filling the spaces. "Oh, Mike, can you believe this?" As if she were still part of this dream we'd built together. But now, this was a stage for revenge. Not just against her, but against Trevor, too. As I wandered from room to room, my mind raced with strategies for auction day. A quick glance at the backyard revealed sprawling gardens leading down to the lake's edge, an idyllic setting that would soon belong to someone else entirely. My chest swelled with anticipation. Victory was within reach. 2 days later, Pete called with news that sent my pulse racing again. "Mike, you won't believe this," he said excitedly. "I just got word. Carol and Trevor are planning on attending the auction in person. They're filming a promotional video." A rush of adrenaline coursed through me at that revelation. "So they're going all in?" I asked, suppressing a laugh that threatened to burst forth. "Yep. They think they're sitting pretty," Pete replied with a hint of disbelief in his voice. "It'll be their big moment, their chance at flaunting their new life." I felt something wicked bubble up inside me. "Let them strut around like peacocks," I said softly under my breath. It would only make their fall from grace that much sweeter. With renewed determination, I hung up and called my trust's lawyer to confirm everything was ready for auction day. "Mr. Dane," he greeted me professionally as usual, though there was a slight warmth beneath his tone. Maybe he sensed what this meant for me. "We've secured funding for you under Riverview Holdings as planned." "Perfect," I replied, feeling a sense of relief wash over me like cool water on hot asphalt after a long summer's day. "The bid limit is set based on your guidelines. We'll be ready for anything." "Great." There was no turning back now. Everything hinged on executing our plan flawlessly. Auction day. The morning dawned bright and clear as I suited up in attire befitting someone in real estate. Sharp blazer and crisp dress shirt paired with neatly pressed trousers. I had my game face on. The auction house buzzed with anticipation when I arrived. Potential bidders mingled among themselves while reporters scuttled about trying to get snippets of interviews before things kicked off. Hidden behind bidder number 47, I took a deep breath as excitement prickled at my skin. It felt surreal watching Carol from across the room, a familiar sight cloaked in unrecognizable arrogance now, as she stood beside Trevor by the registration desk chatting animatedly with other hopeful bidders. They had no idea who stood amongst them. Just another wealthy investor hoping for a solid deal. But today wasn't about being discreet, it was about power plays. The auctioneer finally took center stage amidst cheers and applause. The room hushed as he welcomed everyone and explained the rules. Bids would start low but rise quickly. He gestured toward Carol when announcing lot number 1, the lakefront mansion she'd coveted so desperately. And there it was, my chance at redemption unfolding right before us all. Carol's smug expression filled me with adrenaline. She raised her paddle confidently when bidding opened, a bold move reflecting false bravado, as if nothing could touch her anymore since Trevor entered her life. The gavel slammed down once, twice, then finally announced 1 million after multiple back-and-forth exchanges between her and others vying for ownership, but not without growing confidence from me bubbling beneath skin, waiting patiently. When she placed another bid moments later, at 1.2 million, that's when I made my move. It took everything inside not to let excitement show visibly upon realizing how far above their heads I'd pushed things already. Bidder 47 raises it again, boomed the auctioneer's voice through the air like music plucking strings within me. Going once, going twice. The atmosphere crackled with tension as eyes darted between us. A mere few heartbeats ticking away felt more like lifetimes. But finally came the decisive moment. "I'm out!" Trevor shouted angrily while tugging at Carol's arm when faced with an immediate counteroffer from me, raising them both yet again toward 1.3 million. Laughter erupted across rows, filled with viewers eagerly taking note. It wasn't just business anymore. It became personal, watching those smug smiles twist into disbelief, painting colorfully contrasting hues across their faces. Then came that final gavel drop, the sound resonating through air, sending shockwaves deep into heart pounding away feverishly inside. "I win!" rang out loud within me, drowned amid surrounding cheers erupting across crowds while Carol's face turned white. Her mouth fell open wide enough, resembling shockwaves hitting shores nearby. "Oh no!" she screamed as Trevor yanked at her arm, furiously dragging her toward exit doors following suit, anger spitting behind clenched teeth, yet fading away rapidly from sight. That night, as I settled into my worn-out recliner with a glass of bourbon, the glow of my laptop illuminated the dark corners of my living room. The auction house's live feed had been streaming all day, and I'd kept it running long after I left the building. I needed to relive that moment. The one where Carol's smug confidence shattered like glass, leaving nothing but disbelief in its wake. As the hours ticked by, the footage from the auction went viral. It started quietly. One post on social media turned into a wildfire. Within hours, news channels picked it up. Local woman's epic meltdown at real estate auction flashed across screens, accompanied by clips of Carol standing there, mouth agape and eyes wide, as she realized Trevor had just been outbid by her husband. The camera zoomed in on her face. You could see every shade of red creeping into her cheeks. A montage followed, her shrieks drowned out by laughter, snippets of viewers mimicking her shocked expression. "Guess someone should have seen this coming," I muttered to myself, chuckling softly as I watched another user comment on how she traded up for a gym bro only to end up in the wrong gym. I took a sip of bourbon, smooth but fiery, and let out a low whistle. Watching Carol's fall from grace was almost intoxicating. It felt like karma unfolding right before my eyes. My phone buzzed with notifications. Friends and acquaintances texting me snippets of memes and jokes that were spreading like wildfire online. The humor didn't escape me. It was deliciously ironic how the woman who drained our savings now stood exposed for everyone to see. As people ridiculed her for being foolish enough to trust Trevor with everything she once held dear, something inside me relaxed just a bit more. A couple of days passed in this vein. A mix of schadenfreude and quiet reflection as I stewed over my next moves. In that time, Pete worked tirelessly compiling reports on every transaction Carol made since she transferred our savings into Trevor's accounts. He was thorough, always had been. But this time felt personal. I met Pete at a small diner down the road from my place one afternoon. It was quiet enough for us to talk without prying ears or judgmental stares hovering over us like vultures waiting for a meal. "Mike," he said after we'd ordered coffee. His brow furrowed slightly as he pulled out several documents from his briefcase and laid them across the table like playing cards in some high-stakes poker game. "This is everything you need." I leaned in closer, scanning each page carefully as he explained the tangled web Carol had woven with Trevor's business dealings, a mess that looked messier than any renovation project I'd ever tackled. "Look at these transfers," Pete pointed at highlighted sections on his notes. "She moved funds from your accounts directly into what's essentially his failing enterprise. Money meant for flipping properties vanished without a trace." I felt anger boiling beneath my skin again but held it back, focusing instead on gathering strength for what came next. "So, what do we do?" I asked quietly, aware we were both straddling dangerous territory here. "I can put together an anonymous package," he suggested thoughtfully. "Send it straight to the IRS with all this info showing how she manipulated funds." My heart raced at that idea. It felt powerful, yet terrifying at once, like reaching for an exposed wire during a storm, hoping not to get shocked back into submission again. "Will they act?" I pressed. Pete nodded slowly, his eyes steady on mine. "It's only a matter of time before they dig deeper into this." I thought about all those years I'd trusted Carol completely. Not just with our money, but with my life. And here she was, tearing apart everything we built together simply because she wanted something flashier and younger than what we'd forged over decades. "That sounds good," I finally said after some deliberation, weighing my options carefully. "Let's do it." With that decision made, Pete set about preparing everything while I returned home to wait anxiously, the anticipation gnawing at me relentlessly each passing hour until night fell again and silence wrapped around me tightly. As days slipped by after sending off that package containing incriminating evidence about Carol's dealings along with detailed financial records, well, let's just say they didn't remain idle too long. Suddenly, Trevor's gym announced its temporary closure. No explanations given or reassurances offered. Just that brief statement posted online, sending shockwaves throughout their circle. It seemed there was trouble brewing beneath those flashy Instagram posts, flaunting lives spent soaking up sunshine while drinking protein shakes. While others basked under bright lights down by beachfronts, showcasing their sculpted bodies amid holiday sunsets, I reveled in knowing darkness loomed just behind them. swiftly closing in like shadows, drawing nearer until revealing truths lay bare before them all. And then came another evening where news channels flashed urgent updates confirming investigations were underway following tips regarding suspicious money flows linked directly back toward businesses owned jointly between Carol, Trevor. All those late nights spent crafting revenge had yielded results beyond what I'd ever hoped. As images flickered across screens showcasing local authorities digging through documents, well, that gave me quite an exhilarating thrill within. Like each report further illustrated why they deserved every ounce of embarrassment now thrust upon them while searching frantically for cover beneath endless waves crashing relentlessly against shores nearby. No one could say if either would emerge unscathed from what lay ahead, but frankly, watching them drown slowly amidst their own choices felt satisfying enough. A sweet reward handed down straight from fate herself serving justice served cold. A week later, I sat on the porch of my new lakefront mansion, the sun casting a golden hue over the water. It was quiet, just the gentle lapping of waves against the shore. I could hardly believe this place was mine. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Carol and Trevor were flailing in a storm of their own making, I was savoring my fresh start. The air smelled like pine and fresh-cut grass, a stark contrast to the chaos I'd left behind. Just as I took a sip of coffee from my favorite mug, a gift from my daughter long ago, I got a news alert on my phone. My heart raced as I read the headline, "Local fitness guru caught in fraud scheme." It didn't take long for the story to unfold. Trevor's name jumped off the screen like a neon sign. "Oh boy," I muttered under my breath, a grin creeping across my face. The segment detailed how federal agents had seized Trevor's accounts after connecting him to suspicious transactions involving misused retirement funds. Funds that once belonged to me and had slipped into their greedy hands. Just thinking about it sent a wave of satisfaction coursing through me. They thought they were invincible, flaunting their so-called success like it was written in stone. But here we were, the truth finally surfacing like an old shipwreck. Flipping through the channel options with one hand while sipping coffee with the other, I settled on the local news station as they showed footage of Carol standing outside her condo, her face flushed with rage. She was screaming at a crew attempting to repossess her belongings. Furniture, clothes, even her prized collection of high-end shoes. Watching her rant and rave felt oddly cathartic. "I'm not going anywhere! You can't do this!" she shrieked, pointing dramatically at an indifferent repo man who just shook his head while he continued loading up her things. I chuckled softly to myself. Look at you now, I thought. All those years she manipulated me financially and emotionally. Now she was facing consequences that felt deliciously poetic. The reporter's voice broke through my reverie as they recounted how Trevor's fitness empire was built on lies, using false claims to lure in clients and investors alike under the guise of flipping luxury properties for profit. Carol's face went pale in one shot as they played back video clips of their earlier social media posts showcasing their extravagant lifestyle. "This is all your fault!" she yelled at Trevor in another clip where they appeared together looking nothing less than smug. He with his arms crossed over his chest and her leaning into him like he held all the answers. Trevor tried to defend himself with vague statements about being misunderstood, but it was clear he was scrambling for credibility he didn't have. He looked every bit the fraud he'd become, desperate eyes darting around as if searching for an escape route that didn't exist anymore. I felt exhilaration building inside me. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It felt more like justice being served cold as ice. A knock on my door interrupted my moment of glee. It was Pete, who had been instrumental in getting everything lined up just right. He walked in without waiting for an invitation, a wide grin plastered across his face as he plopped down beside me on the porch swing. "Did you see this?" he asked, gesturing toward my phone, which still displayed Carol's outrageous outburst on loop. "It's all over social media, too. Everyone is loving it." "I did," I replied, shaking my head slightly as I stifled another laugh watching Carol fume uncontrollably like some wild animal cornered by hunters. She thought she could just take what wasn't hers without consequences. Pete chuckled darkly before taking a sip from his thermos full of coffee that smelled way too strong for this early hour. "You know," he said after setting down his drink thoughtfully, It doesn't end here for them either. This whole scheme, they're going to be buried under paperwork once investigators really dig into it. That's what they get? I replied resolutely, but found myself feeling slightly remorseful for not wanting any part in their lives anymore. Not out of pity, but simply because life moves forward regardless of our desires or regrets. With each passing minute watching Carol's emotional breakdown play out live, well, that heavy weight burdening me from weeks prior slowly evaporated like fog before sunrise, exposing clear skies above where dark clouds once loomed threateningly overhead. Time slipped by unnoticed, until we both heard muffled shouting filtering through open windows where we'd left them cracked earlier. The unmistakable sound coming from outside drifted toward us again. Sounds reminding us these two former partners weren't merely suffering. They were flailing hopelessly against waves crashing hard upon rocky shores, no longer welcoming or forgiving. After several minutes filled only by sporadic bursts from news anchors recounting previous segments, highlighting scandals surrounding questionable practices within fitness industries recently rocked by legal fallout, suddenly, realization hit. These people had manipulated others beyond reason, all while ruining countless lives along their path toward superficial gains. What happens next? Pete asked after we'd both observed moments between reporters discussing future ramifications likely affecting both characters involved here profoundly long-term. Honestly? I leaned back against warm wood beneath me, feeling comfort settle around like thick blankets during winter nights ahead filled only with promises anew. I don't care what happens next. Whatever consequences come their way are none of my business anymore. My gaze remained fixed outside onto shimmering water, shimmering nearby, reflecting changing colors, painted vibrantly across horizon line ahead, while knowing finally everything left behind now served merely as backdrop against vibrant, new future opening wide before me. And somewhere deep inside, I realized maybe, just maybe, those final thoughts offered glimmers hope despite turbulent pasts looming behind, leaving opportunities untouched instead, becoming brighter each day, dawning onward again. Moving into the mansion felt surreal. Each creak of the floorboards beneath my feet echoed the past I just escaped, reminding me of what Carol and Trevor had tried to take from me. I could practically hear their laughter echoing in the halls, envisioning them discussing paint colors and furniture arrangements, plotting out their future on my dime. It made my blood boil a bit, but then I'd take a breath, reminding myself that this was mine now, my victory carved from betrayal. The first day was spent unpacking in deliberate silence. I'd grab one box at a time and open it slowly, as if savoring each item inside could somehow stretch out the satisfaction of reclaiming what was rightfully mine. The house was massive, far bigger than anything I'd ever owned. But each room seemed to come alive as I placed furniture in thoughtful spots. A worn leather couch found its home in the living room facing the lake, perfectly positioned for watching sunsets. "Look at you," I muttered to myself, admiring how it pulled the room together. "Not bad for a guy who was left with $7. A hint of humor danced through my mind, even as nostalgia tugged at my heart. There'd been a time when I thought we'd be sharing moments like these, sipping wine while overlooking our beautiful view together. I unwrapped an old coffee table made from reclaimed wood. Its scars told stories of past wear but held strong against time. The memories washed over me, like waves lapping gently at the shore. A soft reminder of long afternoons spent working on projects with Carol by my side, laughing and joking about everything and nothing all at once. I shook my head to clear those thoughts away and moved on. Hours later, I heard a knock at the door. It was Pete, grinning wide, like he'd just won the lottery. "Hey there, looking sharp," he said as he stepped inside. "What do you think?" "It's perfect," I replied honestly, while gesturing around the space with pride. Pete took a step forward into the living room and gazed out toward the lake, the very view Carol had once envisioned with her fantasies woven into someone else's dreams. "I can't believe they thought they could just take this from you," he mused before shaking his head in disbelief. What were they thinking? Honestly, they weren't. My tone dripped with disdain as I thought back to how naive they must have felt when dreaming about their so-called venture, a mirage painted over theft. We settled down on that new couch, and Pete pulled out 2 small glasses from his bag along with a bottle of whiskey that gleamed golden under afternoon light streaming through big windows. "Let's toast to justice," he said, pouring generously into both glasses while giving me an expectant look. "To justice," I repeated, after clinking our glasses together before taking a deep swig. The warmth spreading through me brought comfort mixed with victory. As we talked about old army days and laughed over absurd stories we could barely remember clearly anymore, it felt like life slowly reestablished its rhythm again. The laughter hanging around us tasted sweet after all that had transpired recently. Later that evening, after Pete left, having promised to return soon, I decided it was time for another small ritual. Retrieving that dusty binder containing details about my offshore account, the very key unlocking this new chapter in life filled with hope beyond anything imaginable right now. I went searching through boxes piled high against walls cluttered around here, finally spotting it, nestled between sheets of plastic-wrapped photos, reminding me still too vividly what once filled those frames. Smiles from better times, long past, now tainted forever by betrayal. Once secured safely back within reach, I headed toward the mantelpiece, where carefully arranged treasures found homes atop polished wood below brilliant sunset hues, painting everything outside golden shades, glimmering against glass panes before me, illuminating surrounding rooms within these walls like candlelight flickering softly through shadows lingering nearby. Setting down that binder next upon clean surface where it belonged felt oddly satisfying despite decades since last handling something so personal, and somehow now almost sacred given how much everything had changed over these weeks. Since betrayal struck hard, leaving deep marks carved within heart forever, altered, moving forward without need for regret or fear, clouding paths ahead anew. That night, as darkness wrapped itself around me snugly, I lit a cigar. A long-awaited indulgence, filling air thickly fragrant blending, earthy tones drifting softly into quiet corners, settling throughout entire mansion, casting soothing aura, enveloping warmth, embracing loneliness, fading gently away. With each puff inhaled, deeply filling lungs fully, savoring momentary silence left alone here without worry, creeping back yet knowing full well life would remain unpredictable, still unfolding chapters, endlessly transforming journeys beyond control, seeking meaning continuously revealed, brightening skies, clearing gloom cast overhead. Time passed, unnoticed, as flickering flames danced low, burning brighter, illuminating spaces hidden underneath shadows previously created by others. Reminding every breath taken tonight brought purpose, reclaiming pieces once lost. Rebuilding trust, forgotten, buried deeply within confines. Memories lost somewhere beneath years, building towards brighter tomorrows, waiting patiently until paths crossed again, somewhere down winding roads stretching infinitely onward, revealing destinations unforeseen, paving way through struggles endured, striving ever closer goals set years earlier but forgotten, temporarily overshadowed amid darker realities, confronted during time's hardship forced face first, challenges emerging, stronger still unyielding, persevering onward, finding ways adapt, change, embracing hope, lighting spirits soaring higher. And as smoke spiraled upward, curling towards ceiling above, resting softly against dimming lights overhead, a sense fulfillment washed over entirely, settling deep within soul, reminding what truly mattered, rested solely ahead, not behind, firmly grounding future-shaped choices made today. Leading paths laid forth, discovering joys renewed, embracing beauty found everywhere, waiting patiently, just needing eyes opened wide enough appreciate existence, finally belonging fully, again somewhere tranquil amidst chaos created lived-out experiences evolving endlessly here, reaching depths, seeking fulfillment across life's tapestry. Woven tightly, threading connections drawn between every soul encountered, leaving lasting imprints. Journey shared, moving forward towards endless possibilities, laid bare under brilliant stars. Shining bright, offering glimpses, peace, healing souls, broken, discovering strength, resilient, even amidst loss, reclaim purpose, rebuilt stronger. The morning breeze off Lake Michigan hit different now. I walked along my private stretch of shoreline, coffee in hand, watching gulls dive for their breakfast. You ever notice how nature just keeps going, no matter what chaos we humans cook up? Those birds couldn't care less about betrayal or revenge. I got in the news yesterday. Carol had filed for bankruptcy. Her lawyer tried reaching out to mine, probably fishing for some kind of settlement. I told him what I'd told everyone else. Sorry, don't know anything about it. The same line I'd used when reporters called asking about Trevor's disappeared social media empire. One day, he was posting workout videos from his luxury lifestyle academy. The next, poof, gone like morning mist. Word travels fast in small towns. At the hardware store last week, I overheard two contractors talking about that fitness guy who tried scamming his way into real estate. They didn't know I was the husband in the story. I just nodded along, grabbed my supplies, and left them to their gossip. The smell of lake water and wet sand brought back memories of fishing with my dad. He always said the best revenge is living well. Guess he was right about that one. I kicked at a piece of driftwood, watching it tumble back into the gentle waves. Carol and Trevor's spectacular flameout had become something of a local legend. Divorce lawyers were using it as a cautionary tale about hiding assets. Funny how karma works sometimes. My phone buzzed, another text from Pete. "You see the news? Your boy Trevor just got hit with 3 tax liens." Feds aren't playing around. I smiled, typing back a quick, "Thanks for the update." Pete knew exactly what we'd done, but we never discussed it directly. Some things are better left in comfortable silence. The sun was climbing higher now, warming my face despite the cool air. I finished my coffee and headed back up toward the house. My house, the one they'd tried to claim but never would. Through the massive windows, I could see the fireplace in my study, the centerpiece of the whole room. It had taken some work to get it just right. I'd spent a whole Saturday carefully mounting that old binder in a custom frame. Cost me nearly $200, but it was worth every penny. Seeing it there above the mantel, its worn edges and faded label visible through the glass, reminded me of everything. The betrayal, the plan, the satisfaction of watching it all unfold exactly as intended. My fingers traced the frame's edge. 22 years that account sat untouched, just waiting for its moment. Carol never knew about it, never even suspected. She thought she had everything mapped out, every dollar accounted for. Funny how life throws curveballs when you least expect them. The morning sun caught the glass, making the binder's label gleam slightly. To anyone else, it would look like just another piece of office memorabilia. But I knew better. That binder represented more than money. It was proof that sometimes the best insurance policy is the one nobody knows about. Through the window, I watched another gull sweep down to the water's edge. Simple creature, simple needs. No hidden accounts, no betrayals, no revenge plots. Just living its life according to its nature. Maybe there was wisdom in that. The fireplace crackled softly. I'd lit it earlier to ward off the morning chill. Standing there in my study, surrounded by the life I'd rebuilt, I felt something close to peace. Not the kind that comes from forgetting, but the kind that comes from knowing exactly how you got where you are. That framed binder would stay right where it was, telling its silent story to anyone who knew how to read it. A reminder that what's hidden doesn't always stay lost, and what's stolen doesn't always stay gone. Sometimes it comes back around, bringing justice with it. I poured myself another coffee and settled into my leather chair facing the fireplace. The flames danced, the binder watched from above, and somewhere out there, Carol and Trevor were learning the hard way that karma has perfect timing. You know what's funny about betrayal? The way it changes how you see everything that came before. I sat at my desk that morning, pen hovering over fresh paper, trying to find the right words. Not for Carol, for myself. Sometimes you need to leave yourself a reminder of why walls exist. The leather of my chair creaked as I leaned forward. Outside, wind rippled across the lake, catching early autumn leaves in its dance. 27 years of marriage, and what did I have to show for it? A framed binder above my fireplace and lessons I never wanted to learn. "Dear future Mike," I wrote, then scratched it out. Too formal. The paper already had 3 false starts crumpled beside my coffee cup. How do you tell yourself not to forget pain without drowning in it? I took another sip of coffee, letting the bitter warmth steady my hand. Finally, the words came. To myself, if you're reading this, enough time has passed that maybe the edges have softened. Maybe you're wondering if it was really as bad as you remember. It was. She took everything we built together. Not just the money, the trust, the future, the belief that someone who shares your bed for nearly 3 decades would at least say goodbye to your face. Remember sitting in that empty kitchen, staring at a $7 bank balance? Remember how the property tax notice felt like a noose? Remember learning that while you were laying concrete and hanging drywall, she was planning her escape with a man who posts workout videos for a living? But also remember this: you survived. You rebuilt. Not because you're special, because you prepared without knowing you were preparing. Because that offshore account you set up after the Mason project wasn't just money. It was insurance against a future you couldn't imagine. Keep this binder framed. Keep it where you can see it. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder that trust should be earned twice before it's given once. Mike, October 12th, 2023. I folded the paper carefully, sliding it into the binder's front cover before returning it to its frame. The morning sun caught the glass, throwing shadows across my desk. My phone buzzed, Pete's name lighting up the screen. I answered on the second ring. "Mike," he said, that familiar gruff warmth in his voice. "Got some final intel for you. Thought you'd want to know." "Hit me." IRS has them both flagged for extended review. 5 years minimum. Neither of them can register a new business without triggering automatic audits. Trevor's fitness empire? Dead in the water. Carol's real estate dreams? Same story. I nodded slowly, though Pete couldn't see it. "Thanks for everything, old friend." "Anytime. You good?" "Getting there." After hanging up, I noticed the mail had arrived. Among the usual bills and flyers was a cream-colored envelope with familiar handwriting. No return address, but I knew who it was from. Carol's precise letters, slightly slanted, right like always. The envelope felt light, just a single sheet inside. For a moment, I held it, remembering all the birthday cards and anniversary notes that had come in similar envelopes over the years. Without opening it, I walked to the fireplace. The flames were still low from morning, mostly embers now. I tossed the envelope in, watching as the edges curled and blackened. Whatever words she'd written, whatever excuses or explanations or pleas she'd crafted, they didn't matter anymore. The paper caught quickly, corners glowing orange before dissolving into ash. Funny how something that would have torn me apart 3 months ago now meant nothing at all. I watched until there was nothing left but a few dark flakes settling among the embers. Through the window, I could see whitecaps forming on the lake as the wind picked up. A storm was rolling in from the west. Time to close the windows and settle in with some paperwork. Life goes on, after all. There were bids to review, crews to schedule, foundations to pour. I glanced up at the framed binder one last time before heading to my office. The letter inside would probably yellow with age. Its ink might fade, but the truth it held would stay sharp. Some lessons you only need to learn once. The evening news droned quietly in the background as I settled into my favorite leather armchair by the fireplace. The familiar weight of a good cigar rested between my fingers, its smoke curling lazily toward the ceiling. Above the mantel, that old offshore binder caught the flickering firelight through its frame, a constant reminder of how quickly life can change. In local business news, the anchor's voice cut through my thoughts. The viral mansion auction scandal continues to make waves on social media. I turned up the volume slightly, taking another draw from my cigar. The screen filled with footage I'd seen before, Carol's meltdown at the auction house, Trevor pulling her away as she screamed about unfair bidding. But they'd added new clips. Trevor's gym being locked up, Carol being escorted from her condo by repo men, their luxury car being towed away in the middle of the night. What began as an ambitious real estate venture by fitness influencer Trevor Cross and his partner Carol Halstead has become a cautionary tale for the digital age. The reporter continued. Multiple sources confirm their accounts remain frozen pending federal investigation, with estimated losses approaching $500,000. I couldn't help but smile at the irony. They tried to build their dream on stolen money, and now they couldn't even open a checking account without raising red flags. The segment cut to an interview with some financial expert I didn't recognize. This case perfectly illustrates the dangers of social media-driven investment schemes, she explained. When you combine unauthorized fund transfers with questionable business practices and add the spotlight of social media, the fallout can be devastating. They showed screenshots of Trevor's defunct fitness pages, his follower count plummeting as the story spread. Carol's carefully curated real estate profile had vanished entirely. Their names would forever be linked to terms like fraud and financial misconduct in local search results. While no criminal charges have been filed, the anchor concluded, sources say both individuals face years of financial scrutiny and restrictions on future business ventures. I clicked off the TV, letting the quiet settle back in. Through the wall of windows, the sun was starting its descent over the lake, painting the water in shades of amber and gold. This view, the one they'd tried to claim for themselves, now greeted me every morning and bid me good night every evening. The house felt different than I'd imagined when I first won it. Not some trophy of revenge, but a space I'd deliberately made my own. Every piece of furniture, every paint color, every fixture, I'd chosen them all carefully, thoughtfully, no rushed decisions, no desperate grabs for status. Just quiet confidence and the comfort of knowing everything here was earned honestly. My phone buzzed softly. Another text from Pete. Saw the news segment. You doing okay? I typed back, never better. Having dinner on the deck tonight. You should come by sometime. Will do. Karma's got a way of working things out, doesn't it? I smiled at that. Karma, strategy, justice, whatever you wanted to call it, the end result was the same. Carol and Trevor had tried to build their dreams on stolen trust, and now they had nothing but each other and a mountain of frozen accounts to show for it. The last rays of sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the glass of the framed binder. I took a final drag from my cigar, savoring the rich taste as I watched the smoke drift upward. That binder represented more than just money or revenge. It was a reminder that sometimes the best insurance policy is the one you never think you'll need. Standing up, I walked to the fireplace and raised my whiskey glass in a silent toast to the framed reminder of my own foresight. The words came naturally, quiet but certain. Trust is earned. So is payback. Outside, the lake waters lapped gently at the shore as another perfect evening settled over my reclaimed life. I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.